Hello and welcome. It is Wednesday at noon Eastern in the United States. Hope you're having a wonderful morning wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar presented by Nadex. My name is Jason Paff. I am your presenter and educator for today. Thanks for joining us. This is part of a series that I'll be doing through this month. Today's topic is how to build a trading plan and generate ideas for the trading week ahead. I find one of the more, in my opinion, it's an interesting irony, one of the more intimidating skills or tactics for a new trader can be just generating new trading ideas organically. But as somebody who's been at this for just a bit, I find it's really one of the more fun parts of trading is asking good questions, going through content analysis, trying to string different ideas together, looking at the calendar for a week and really planning your activity. So that's always been a lot of fun for me. So I enjoy the opportunity to share with you today and to share this content, to share some ideas with you about, and this is really a lot of what we're going to go through today. Is from my perspective. I'll share with you some of the things I do. Some of that's just for context, just so you have, another trader's point of view. One of the challenges in trading inherently is it's a solitary environment sometimes. You're on your own. You're doing things your way, and it's very helpful sometimes to step back and talk with another trader or look at another trader's process. You're never going to replicate it perfectly, but maybe there's some things you pick up, or maybe it validates some things you're already doing and thinking. So that's really the process we'll go through today. Is I'll just share with you. Here's my process. Here's how I approach a week. Here's how I build a trading plan. I'll show you a copy of the spreadsheet I use. It's as much of a journal as it is an actual trading plan. I remember when I was starting out, folks would talk about a trading plan. I didn't know if there was some, document that everybody else got that I didn't get, or if that was just kind of something that people talked about conceptually but didn't actually happen. I actually use, a spreadsheet just to kind of track progress, track activity. And again, it's as much of a journal, so I can look back at past patterns and things that have worked for me and haven't worked. So I'll show some examples of that later today. But again, more than anything, thank you for sharing some of your very valuable time with me. Please drop any questions or comments into the chat feature of the webinar. Love to get your insight, your feedback, maybe some things we're going to speak to today resonate with you. Maybe you'd like some additional color or commentary on something, or maybe there's something you disagree with and want to give me feedback on. Love to get your thoughts and engagement on that. As I said, this is part of a series of webinars, so to speak. Today's one of really the foundational building block pieces. At the end of the month, November 28th, at 11 a.m. Central, same time, November 28th, I'll be presenting what I would consider the premium webinar of the series, how to build a trading strategy from start to finish. So today we're going to talk about how to generate ideas and how to build a plan. There'll be another webinar next week where we talk about different types of trading strategies and different strategies you can use to diversify your trading. Again, another building block element. So today we'll talk about a plan. Next week we'll talk about different strategies you can plug into your plan. And then really the premium kind of capstone of those webinars is how to build a trading strategy from start to finish. And that'll be a really engaging, interactive session. I'll take you right into actual things I'm using, things I'm looking at, things I'm tracking, where I trade from, etc. As I work through a trading strategy for the week. You'll have access to all of that. You'll be able to ask questions and really get additional guidance. So that webinar at 11 a.m. Central on November 28th is really going to be designed to be an interactive, engaging session where you have access to anything you'd like me to share with you in terms of my trading strategy and things I use, tools I use, places I get ideas, and ways I build my plan. Again, that'll be November 28th. The only thing you need to be in terms of ready for that webinar, or be able to attend that webinar, is you do need to be a funded member of the Nadex exchange prior to that webinar on the 28th. So webinar today, webinar next week, building blocks, and then on the 28th, you're a funded member. Come engage with us, and we will take you from start to finish on building a trading strategy. And it's really designed for any type of market, and we've seen up markets lately, down markets, sideways trending markets. One of the great things about the Nadex platform is you have access to a whole range of markets globally. Whether they're trending or not, you can build strategies to be successful. And I am certainly one who is passionate about helping you do that. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. One, we're going to talk about just the mindset that I approach each week with. The second piece, and again, this is really the most fun for me in terms of trading. This is one of the things I love about trading is the ability to take an idea and put it into action and then see how that idea does, right? We all are well aware that there's a scoreboard at the end of each trade that'll tell us how we did. And then the third objective today is I just want to talk to you about how I build a plan. And again, some of that, it's not in any way designed to be prescriptive. Some of it's for your context. You see what another trader does. Some of it you may take some best practices and ideas from. And some of it you may say, you know, it's a neat idea, but I kind of like how I do that, and that's fair game too. So my name is Jason. I do webinars, articles, other content for Nadex.com. You can see my market analysis in the market news section of the website if you're at Nadex.com. Also, and if you haven't done this, I highly recommend it. I've got a series of archived webinars at the Nadex YouTube channel. So either now or in your spare time, go out to YouTube, find the Nadex channel. Should be easy to find, and favorite that so that Nadex does a great job of putting fresh content, fresh educational resources. Some of it's very specific to the Nadex platform. Some of it's just general educational resources for traders. Favorite that channel so you're always getting those updates. I've got a series of webinars out there. We've talked Ichimoku lately. We've talked technical indicators. We've talked chart patterns. We've talked oil markets. I've talked Bitcoin markets. Love the opportunity to share educational content with traders on Nadex. So check out the YouTube channel for some of those archived videos when you get the opportunity. Again, my name is Jason. I do enjoy working with Nadex and offering educational content, market analysis in a variety of venues across a variety of markets. So thanks again for attending today. Before we go any further, I want to talk about the risk disclaimer. I want to give each of you a moment to view that. Certainly want everyone to understand that trading in any form or fashion involves financial risk. Certainly may not be appropriate for everybody. Everything we talk about today is purely for educational and informational purposes. There'll be no offers or solicitations to buy or sell any financial instrument. And just know that, you know, trading can be volatile. Traders certainly risk losing their investment on any given transaction. All right, and then an additional risk disclaimer. What we're going to talk about today is some of the things I use, you know, as information or analysis or different tools I use. So with respect to some of those, you know, I'll show you some examples of websites, etc. In no way, shape, or form am I endorsing the veracity or accuracy of any particular website or any information you may glean in your own spare time from any of those websites. I just want to show you, again, examples of things I choose to view in my spare time as I prepare for a week ahead, but you certainly do so at your own risk, and nothing I say or do or show today should be considered an endorsement or approval or a guarantee of accuracy or anything else with respect to any third-party websites that we view today. All right, now that we got the disclaimers out of the way, let's talk about mindset, right? One of the most important things, and really, if we're being honest, one of the hardest things to manage as a trader is your own mindset. You're your own biggest obstacle at times. You know, as I said earlier, trading can be a very solitary endeavor at times, and second guessing yourself or thinking about a different way you could have done a trade that maybe didn't work out, or becoming too confident with a trade that, you know, really did work out. How those things impact your own mindset certainly can be one of the greatest challenges all of us face as a trader. But I've found through time, and you know, this is certainly my experience, or working with other traders from a variety of levels of experience, when you realize, you know, a lot of what you challenge yourself with in your mindset is, you know, you wish you would have done something different. You wish something would have worked out a different way. I think at a certain point, and this is helpful for me to remember as I head into each week, what you can control is, with respect to the markets, is I put the word infinitesimally small, and I think that's still an exaggeration. You really can't control any of those elements with respect to the markets. If you put on a trade and it doesn't work out, guess what? It just didn't work out. You really didn't control anything as to whether or not it did work out. You can't really control that outcome in any way, shape, form, or fashion. What you can control is how you think and prepare. So bemoaning, you know, trades that got away, or things that didn't quite work out, or things you wish would have worked out differently, is certainly human. It's certainly a seductive and tempting way to think when things may or may not work out. But what I found is, again, really liberating. On the slide before, I talk about it as a breakthrough. What I can do is head into next week as prepared and as ready and as full of ideas and as full of other opinions and analysis, et cetera, as I can be to get ready to attack next week. Anytime I have a challenge as a trader, I want to take the lesson, take the education the market's trying to teach me, and then step back into preparation, think in preparation mode, so that I'm ready, I'm fresh, I'm vibrant, and I'm ready to go when it's time to trade again. Otherwise, if you let losses linger, or if you let wins linger too long, you're giving undue influence to things that, at the end of the day, you really can't control. And again, as easy as it is to think those ways as a person or as a human, and we're all human at the end of the day, it's really actually not only not helpful, it's counterproductive to your success as a trader. I firmly and fundamentally believe, if you take away nothing else from our time together, take away this. Success as a trader relies in large part on your process. Financial markets are a mess sometimes. They're volatile. They're unpredictable things happen. The news flow's a mess. It's inconsistent. One outlet saying one thing, another. So many things coming at you. Again, so many things going on that you can't control. What you can control is your process. And if you have a repeatable, consistent process that you can work on improving over time, you can only work on improving if it's consistent. But if you can work on improving a consistent process over time, I think you have a really good shot at a stable, sustainable success in trading. And the quality of that process, you know, might ultimately determine to what extent you're stable, sustainable, etc. But I think it all, at the end of the day, comes back to process. And in my opinion, no process is going to be perfect, but when a trade doesn't work out your way, you can revert back to the framework which led you into that trade in the beginning, take the lesson the market's tried to teach you, and see what you want to do with respect to your process. That part of your trading and of your life and career as a trader is certainly well within your control. So characteristics of a successful week to me as I prepare to trade, no question, and we just talked about it: mental preparation, reading, following your routine. Following your routine, again, we talked about mental preparation, we talked about reading, we'll talk a lot about. Yeah, again, this is my bias. I think you got to read a lot, and you got to like reading to be a successful trader, but that's my process. And then practice. You know, one of the great things about Nadex that I recommend all of us, no matter how experienced we are, take advantage of is the free and permanent demo account. It's Nadex.com. Just click on Nadex.com/demo. It takes 2 minutes if you haven't already done it. Register for a free and permanent demo account. It'll be stocked with virtual money. You can put on live trades with the same data stream you have for live markets and practice strategies and hone your craft and practice and get more oriented to the platform and find your rhythm. And so I really recommend folks, you know, in terms of characteristics of a successful week, you want to be immersed in training, but you also want to have an outlet to, you know, try some things out and try out some new indicators, try out some new strategies. You always want to be iterating and improving as a trader, and you have to have an outlet and a venue to do that. And I think the Nadex demo account is a great way to do that. So common traits, and again, my opinion, things I've seen over time of successful traders. One of the cool things about trading is successful traders come from all walks of life. They trade at different times of the day. They have different levels of professional experience. They have different levels of education. They come from different countries. They look different. Tremendous amount of diversity with successful traders I know. But they do have a few things in common. And again, as we talk about, and really I've designed kind of the content here for talking about what goes into a successful week. I think in terms of weeks, some of you may be thinking, you know, this is a process you'll work through day to day. That's totally cool. For me, it's a week. I want to exhibit, and I want to make sure I'm holding myself accountable to exhibiting these traits on a weekly basis. You know, I want to be positive. I want to be energetic. I want to be confident. I want to be humble, and I want to be curious, right? And I think a couple of those make sense. And by virtue of you just being here, right, you're exhibiting, you know, a curiosity. Great traders love to learn. They love to ask questions. That's really cool that you're here, and I think that starts to exhibit that right out of the gate. You're confident and humble. Those two might seem at odds sometimes. I mean, you need to believe in who you are and what you do and that you're prepared to trade. But I say every day, I find a way and a reason to say it every day. The markets humble me daily. You know, I'm always wrong about something in the markets. There's not yet to be a day where I've been around markets where I haven't been wrong about something. So keeping that humility in balance with a sense of confidence is really, really critical. And that's probably the harder balance of anything we'll talk about with respect to trades to strike, because those two can be at odds. You know, it's easy to lose humility when a series of trades goes your way and you get on a run. On the reverse, when you're on a colder streak, it's hard to be confident. But keeping those two in balance, regardless of the near-term outcomes, is definitely a series of traits of successful traders. So tactically, let's start breaking it down. What tactical principles do I want to put into play and take those traits we just talked about? You know, how do they need to manifest in my weekly work as a trader? One, each trade, and ultimately, you know, if you're a carpenter, it's nails and hammers and wood, and you're building things all week. For a trader, you know, you're putting on trades, right? Remember, those trades are about a lot more than direction. One of the key mistakes I see with somebody who's either A, on a streak that isn't going their way, or a newer trader trying to figure it out, they spend too much time on direction and at the expense of time on things like, you know, risk management, calculating risk reward, selecting entry and exit points, really looking at good pivot points if you're a price action trader. So remember, it's about a lot more than direction. As I'm doing research, I'm not just looking, you know, if I'm looking at FX, I'm not just wanting to know which direction I think dollar yen's going. You know, I want to know, you know, what's the upper resistance, what's the lower level of support, where's my risk reward, you know, how do I want to manage that from a risk management perspective with the other trades I want to put on. Those need to be explicit characteristics or considerations for each of our trades. I want to constantly evaluate why my systems may be working. We talked about balance. Keep it simple. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is really, 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 really simple. You know, we're talking about things like reading and where to go to read analysis and content. I'll show you an example of a very simple spreadsheet I use as a trading journal so I can track my learnings. These are simple tools, things that, my elementary age school children use. Books and, simple spreadsheet as a journal. Keep it simple. There's enough complexity delivered to you by markets every day. Keep your tools and your approach to them as simple as possible. We talked about practice. We talked about staying positive. Certainly things we want to stay mindful of. All right, so let's talk about generating some ideas. Love this part of it. Again, I think one of my goals through these 3 webinars, and as we said up front, today's a foundational building block piece. We're talking about really how to build a plan. Next week, we're going to talk about how to consider different trading strategies within your plan. And then our premium webinar, November 28th, 11 a.m. Central, how to build a trading strategy from start to finish. All you need to do to attend that is be a funded member of the exchange. I hope through the series of these 3, if nothing else, you really get some practice and you get some refinement and you get some additional expertise in how to generate trading ideas and build those into a weekly plan, and giving you a series of strategies that you can come at those different trading ideas that you generate with. So as you think about generating trading ideas, that can really come 3 different ways. One, just sheer research and idea generation. That's, again, reading. It's looking at other analysts. That's, reading journals, looking at other social platforms. We'll take a look at example of TradingView, for instance, looking at getting ideas from other traders, basically. You can also pour through data and do your own analysis. I encourage that, especially as you gain more experience and expertise. We'll talk about places where you can pull in your own raw data and make your own judgments about where you think maybe a currency is going, or, start tracking oil inventory reports so you can start to formulate your own point of view and your own opinion on where oil may head next week based on where you see inventory trading. And then 3 is purely technical setups, right? You can generate ideas just from, if you're a more technical trader, you may see oil at, a certain level of support coming into a classic double bottom, and you're really going through a lot of charts to generate some trading ideas. Even if you're a technical trader, you still want to have a process or a routine for when you're, what charts are you going through? What's your time horizon? When do you go through those charts? What markets are you reviewing? One of the things I tell folks, because I invariably get the question, what type of trader should I be? If you talk about these 3 ways of generating trade ideas, research or data or technical setups, what's best for me, what's best for trading. What's best for you is what you like the most, because what you like the most is what you're going to do the most, and what if you're working hard and repeatedly doing something, typically one could expect you get better over time. So if you're a data person, learn how to use data and learn how other traders use data. If you love to read and you're curious about world events, maybe you're a more fundamental trader. Pursue that. Pursue that with a passion. Continue to work towards that. Don't worry about, am I doing this right or wrong? Follow what interests you. You'll do it more. You'll work harder at it. You'll get better at it, and you'll have more fun. And at the end of the day, we should all be having fun at this. And then again, if you like charts and you like spending time at your terminal and in front of your monitors, and you like learning about other chart setups and technical patterns and things like Fibonacci, do it, man. Go for it and get better at that. I will say, to generate more and better ideas, one of the best ways to do that is 2 things. One, understand one of these really well and generate ideas that way. So maybe you're a technical trader, and maybe you every Sunday night at 9 o'clock, Australia opens, Asia's coming into the open, and you start teeing up charts and looking at your setups for the week of what you want to trade at Nadex. That's really cool, and you will get ideas doing that. But if you want to generate more ideas, you're going to have to branch out. Pick another strategy. Maybe Saturday morning or Sunday morning, you set aside 2 hours to read some fundamental analysis, and maybe that opens your mind to some different markets. And you've never traded gold, but I read this great article in gold, and this guy really thinks something's going to happen with gold based on supply. I don't know if I'm entering a trade based on that, but I want to follow gold this week. Maybe I'll trade gold in my demo account, check that out. And now you're teeing up gold as a part of your routine because you've branched out your idea generation strategy to a more fundamental. It's not your bread and butter, but it's 1 to 2 hours a week, and maybe it gives you 3 to 6 new trading ideas a week, and you normally have 9 to 12. So you added 1 to 2 hours a week, and you've got 30 to 40% more trading ideas, adopting a little different trading strategy into your process. Another way that you can generate ideas, and this, again, might be something you're already doing, is good validation here from me. It may be something that you've never really thought of it in these terms, is look for areas of potential volatility. And we're going to talk about a calendar here in a second. We'll talk about data releases. Another way for, let's continue with our example, there's a lot of technical traders here today, which is, again, really cool. I'm not somebody who's a pure technical trader, but I respect it and believe in it. They're not always the first guys to check the calendar, right? And so undertaking, again, additional points of information and folding it into your strategy. And if you're a technical trader, understanding where pockets of volatility may be on the horizon over the next week or two, or day or two, or hour or two, depending on your time horizon, can be a really, again, add additional areas of opportunity for you as a trader. It's always interesting to me, and I don't want to sound anything less than positive about other traders, because we're all working hard. It's hard work. But it's always curious to me when I'm talking to another trader, and I'll talk to them about, maybe a interest rate decision or something. And we're talking about people who spend hours a day in financial markets, and they're like, well, I'm a pure technical trader, right? Like, I don't really get into that. Well, that's going to affect markets. Like, even if you're not trading off of it, understand the event, know the event's happening, and maybe through that work, it'll help you generate, 1 to 2 or 3 other angles or other trade ideas that you would not have ordinarily already been introduced to. The thing with volatility is when you start to understand it, you start to understand the opportunities that volatility lends you. And I think the Nadex platform is, in my opinion, one of the things I love is the opportunities to trade volatile events. And still do it in a way with a binary or a spread that allows me to control the level of risk and really build a couple of really flexible strategies around that event with a Nadex product. Again, it's a simple process. Know the event's going to happen, look at the technical setup, build a strategy around that, and then go ahead and execute. Another way you can generate some ideas from a strategy perspective. We had a webinar a couple of weeks ago purely based on just momentum trading strategies. And we'll talk about this in the next webinar, the premium webinar. If you just want to purely trade momentum, how do you prepare for a week? How do you build that strategy across several different markets? Because momentum happens in all markets, right? And again, if you're a technical trader and you're just looking at chart setups or pattern setups, technical levels or Fibonacci, depending on the indicators you're using, it may or may not give you insight into the level of momentum in that market. And trading momentum can have lots of benefits. And again, just knowing a market is trending with momentum at any given time can help you generate some ideas and give you some opportunities to build that and fold that into your plan. From a weekly perspective, so as I come into a week, again, if I think in terms of where I started as a new trader, you're just trying to tie it all together. You just I'll read some articles, and then maybe I'll talk to a buddy in a chat room or something, But now I almost work through a checklist as we start working through these different types of strategies, like volatility we just talked about, or momentum. We'll talk about events. I want to know what are the top 2 or 3 markets this week trading with momentum. And then I want to talk about, okay, what are the 2, 3, or 4 or 5 most volatile events that are going to happen this week, right? And then when you start to, whether or not you even trade those events, you're still going to evaluate them based on that criteria. And so really to take trading, in my opinion, to another level, and this is, my opinion based on my experience and work with other traders, when you really want to start generating a significant amount of serious trading ideas to attack a week with, you'll start looking at a week with different strategies that we'll talk about through these 3 webinars, momentum, volatility, events. And just making a list of the top 3 or 4 opportunities in those buckets, organized in that way, you get 10 trading opportunities, trading ideas right out of the gates. We talked in a previous webinar, computers, I think it's the Picasso quote, computers are useless because they can only answer questions, meaning the person asking the questions is really the one who's got the power. As a trader, the level and quality of your questions really going to go a long way to determining your success. So instead of just asking, okay, what are some opportunities this week? What markets are trading with momentum? What markets will be volatile? And I can build a volatility base. What markets have serious events? What are the serious data releases? You do those 4 and you do a top 4, it's 16 ideas right there off the bat. You could probably put that list together, 15, 20 minutes with some basic desk research. Correlations, another strategy. We'll talk more about this in the 3 webinars. Again, this is a really strong way and a tool and a technique to generate additional ideas. Whether or not you actually trade the correlation, as a trader, you bring a level of creativity into the equation when you start to think in terms of, okay, I think yen may be down this week because Abe is going to host a certain event. And I'm just purely making up hypotheticals. You have some fundamental viewpoint. Maybe you've done this through your reading and you're looking at the calendar, some of those things we just talked about, right? And you're thinking, okay, so I think, hypothetically speaking, and we're just picking a random week, the yen may go down. Then as a trader, and again, whether or not you actually trade correlations, what other markets may or may not move in tandem with the yen? What markets may or may not be impacted? And again, these are ways that many of us already think about, kind of on the fly and ad hoc. What I'm saying is we're going to put this into a formal part of our process so that each week, when we do feel like we have an angle on direction, we want to set up a sustainable, repeatable process that will tell us, hey, yen's down, that may impact gold, that may impact the Aussie dollar, that may, and I'm just completely making up hypothetical examples here. But we'll have a way to tee those up and research them. And then again, you may or may not trade the correlation, but now you're looking at an Aussie dollar chart, you're thinking of the yen deal, and you may see an even better setup in the Aussie. Whereas, the week before you had that kind of strategy, you may have missed that opportunity entirely. The way to generate more and better ideas is to really fold more and better techniques for generating ideas into your day-to-day. And looking at what things correlate, move in tandem, and impact each other can bring 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different markets into your field of vision that you would not have otherwise considered. And then again, if you're a technical trader, you're still just looking at those markets, and then you're reviewing setups, and you're looking at Fibonacci levels, etc. I talked a second ago about events. Again, one of my favorite strategies for Nadex is to trade events. You talked about oil earlier. I love watching the weekly release. We had that this morning, actually. The EIA inventory data, always a market mover in oil. So just understanding those events. We'll talk more about how to build a strategy as we go through these 3 webinars. But event strategies is another way to generate more ideas. It's one thing to say, okay, I know the Fed's meeting this week. We have the midterm elections. We've got oil data. We've got inflation data. As a trader, then you want to work through a process to say, okay, we've got some event-based strategies. I can trade direction. Well, let's take oil, for instance. We had the oil inventory report this morning. If you feel like you're a data person and you're looking at the oil inventory data and you feel like you have an angle on that market, angle on what you think will happen with inventories, you can just purely trade direction on the Nadex platform. You can straddle the event, right? Straddles are and again, this is one of the reasons I love Nadex is you have different opportunities, different strategies you can employ with one event. So with a straddle, you can potentially make profits regardless of direction. You buy a strike below the market, you sell a strike above the market, and then based on the movement, if it stays within that range, you'd profit. In the reverse, if you buy above, sell below, if it's a very volatile release, as long as it touches one of those two strikes, if the market moves with one of those two positions, you could end up profitable. So that's another event-based strategy potentially. Or as we said earlier, you could just trade momentum. You can wait for the event or wait for the release, see which way the market breaks, and if it has enough energy and momentum, you could ride it with that direction potentially. So we've talked about events. Again, these are things that we'll look at: an economic calendar, central bank meetings, market data, monthly data releases. We're talking oil markets. You'll want to circle the OPEC monthly data release, for instance, for potential trade setups. So here's an example of an economic calendar. I hope and trust most of you, for those of you on the call, have been at this a while. You've probably got a calendar du jour that you already use and like. This one, I use from IG.com. But you definitely want to have a standard setup and a standard routine with which you review the economic calendar. On a Sunday, I'll typically do it 2 weeks in advance. So I'm never looking at a week that's coming up for the first time the Sunday before it starts. If for instance, last week, I wanted to know that even though they didn't hit in last week, the elections and the Fed were the following week, and those things are pretty consequential to financial markets potentially, and I would want to know that those things were, even though they weren't going to impact trading last week, that they were following weeks. So have a calendar, have a consistent calendar that you get used to using, you get used to the filters, you have it set up the way you like it, and then again, I recommend looking at least 2 weeks running before your week starts. Key tool for setting up your weekly plan. Another thing you can do, and I use TradingView. If you follow my articles or see my articles on Market News, and I cut screenshots out of TradingView. I do some other work, and I'm always in my TradingView. One of the features of TradingView is you can set up a social stream for any market, and you can look at other people's charts, other people's trade ideas, other people's trade setups. Again, if we remember back to the risk disclaimer, no endorsement or even recommendation of that, but as a source of potential ideas, you can go to something like TradingView.com and review other chart setups. You can go out on Twitter and search for USD JPY, hashtag yen or something, and just, I find it's a good way. Well, I'm never going to just trade based on the chart that somebody tweeted. It's a good way maybe to start to look at charts in maybe a market that I hadn't looked at in a while, or somebody else's trade idea sparks an idea in mine. Often when you're generating trading ideas, and ideas in any context, it's not really the first idea that you capture that leads to success. It's really what that idea leads to. So if you're on TradingView, or somebody's sending out a screenshot on Facebook, or here's what I think is going to happen, to trade on that is pretty thin in terms of process, and that's to put it nicely. But maybe that causes you to really think, and you see a Fibonacci level you hadn't set up, and you want to take a look in your own trade station. You're looking at that, and you think, hey, yeah, I mean, yen's about to retrace pretty hard. I think that's possible, and yen and gold typically move in correlation. Let's take a look at gold real quick, because as I was looking at the gold I didn't actually have Fibonacci running, so I want to check that. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at gold, and it looks like it's running the same Fibonacci level. This could be a serious move. It's not that first, chart that you saw that you're going to trade from. It's the process it leads you into that I think has value. So setups like TradingView, when you turn on the social stream for a particular market, and then here in the example, we've got, I guess I'm set up on crude here. So the main frame there is my own crude oil WTI chart. That's actually pretty recent. Actually, it's a few dollars more than we're at today, so this is probably last week. But then you can see the ideas stream and the titles there in the upper right. And other people just stream their charts and stream their ideas. And again, am I going to trade off of Crypto Brahma's WTI crude oil thoughts? No. But, I appreciate his feedback. Again, maybe he's got a trend line drawn that I hadn't thought of. Maybe he's got some different things that are new. Something else on TradingView. Again, no endorsement here whatsoever. Lots of trading stations have the same functionality. Because I'm looking for potential opportunities. Below the screen there, you can just click on Overview, Performance, or Oscillators. And if you just click on Performance, it'll give you every currency pair that they can possibly load. You actually have a filtering mechanism if you just want to cut it down to certain ones. And it'll give you, current pricing, bid ask, so you're looking at your spread, highs and lows, and it's just matched to whatever time interval your chart is for. So if you're looking at a day or an hour on your chart, it will be a day or an hour. And it'll show you the change, and the percentage change. And so as we were talking earlier about momentum, it's like, well, Jason, everything sounds great. I get what you're saying intellectually, but how do I find what market's in momentum? Whatever your trade station is probably has a feature. Again, I use TradingView. It's free. You set the performance deal for FX, and you scan all the markets, and you can see, in the last hour, dollar yen's up 1%, and over the last day, dollar yen's up 3%. Well, that's a market that's clearly trending hard, clearly a momentum. I want to click on that and check it out and see if it's a good momentum setup. So these ways that you can find almost a dashboard with different performance metrics that you can just scan. Again, if you're looking, as we talked earlier, what we're going to start to get to is, I've got an event-based strategy, I've got a volatility-based strategy, I've got a momentum-based strategy, and so you want a tool that's going to help you generate ideas for all three. That's kind of where we're going here. So with the event-based strategy, we looked at an example of a calendar. You want to check out the calendar and see what events are coming up, and then you'll build a strategy around 3 or 4 ideas that you may or may not trade on, but at least it's an option for you. For momentum, you need something like this, so where you can tee up 50 different currency pairs, or 10, or your favorites on Nadex, and you can take a look. How hard are they trending? What's the rate of change? That'll also give you an insight into potential volatility. You can take a look at spreads, etc. See what currencies, or if you're trading commodities or oil or gold or metals, what's on the move. And this is just an example of the drop down you can use on trading. Again, I use it. This is really designed around what I do. So I trade momentum a lot, but I want to look at other things. There's a drop down. You can look at rising, falling, all-time high, all-time low. Again, not rocket science, but I want to set this up 8 o'clock on a Sunday night. And again, my goal, what I hold myself accountable to as a trader is, I want 3 or 4 good momentum ideas heading into the week. And so I need to use a routine like this to get that down and get it into my trading plan for the week. FinViz is a website I use. It's a good news stream. You've got, what I like about it is on the left you got news, on the right you got blogs. Again, no endorsement from me on any of this. You are looking at information on the internet. Buyer, user, reader, beware. But I like to scan. A lot of my setup, honestly, and you guys do this as traders, and I like to scan lots of stuff at once and then pick something out, needle in a haystack. So on the left, you got just news, a lot of Reuters, Market Watch, New York Times types of news sources. On the right, a little more of the Wild West blog situation. But as I talked earlier, as a trader, you need to read, in my opinion. and finding those sources where you can scan through a lot and pick a few things out from many options just based on your own innate curiosity or your own desire to understand the market better will certainly be helpful. And you can see, there's a good mix here of, news and FX news and market news and, again, blogs with different ideas on it. And whether or not, you actually ever go check out FinViz, and I think it's a pretty cool, place, but that's just my opinion. I recommend you find sources that are both analysis and your own. You want to take in your own news stream and form your own opinion. But it's also helpful on the right hand of the side to, see what somebody else thought and what their ideas are. And, if you're trading stock indices, and the weekly mortgage report comes out, you'll want that data for yourself with as little filter as possible. But it also helps to look at, what, a blogger thought and his ideas and what type of setup he thinks that is. So that news plus analysis to me is a really powerful paradigm and way to come at it. Also on FinViz, and again, just one platform, a little different than the TradingView setup, but same principle. You want to have setups to where you can scan multiple markets at once and then just keep it as simple as possible. Red, yellow, green, what's trending, what's declining, what's advancing. And again, here's where good traders separate from really, really, really good traders. Nothing I'm sharing here is rocket science, but this is where we go back to earlier in the webinar. I really recommend you take 4 or 5 basic strategies that we'll build a plan for, and you look at this through those 3, 4, 5 different prisms, right? Like, where are my momentum opportunities? Where are my volatility opportunities? Where's my event opportunities, provided you've already looked at your calendar? So that, because what a trader who's maybe a little less sophisticated does, he just looks at this as like, okay, well, so what's running? Like, pound's up, let's check out pound. Maybe, and he'll kind of look for his normal technical setup. He trades a lot of double bottoms, and so, no double bottom on pound, so let's go somewhere else. And I get that, and that's, you'll eventually find a trade, and sometimes you start reaching, sometimes you start, it gets a little undisciplined. It gets harder to check your process and really learn from past mistakes because you kind of come at it a little differently each time. But when you come to a panel of 12 different charts, and you're saying, okay, right now for the next 10 minutes, I'm just looking at this through the prism of where's the momentum in the market right now. And you jot down 2 or 3 ideas, check out 2 or 3 charts, you put them in your journal/trade plan, and you see what's shaking. And then you'll do the same with your calendar and event strategies. It gives you a repeatable process to really check yourself against, to where you're writing down 20 different ideas, and you can always go back and evaluate your process, see how you did, see what you need to tweak. This is stockcharts.com, good place for a lot of index data. I've highlighted the drop down to the right. Again, whether or not you ever use this platform is totally your call, but a lot of index traders will trade technical setups, which I get, but when you have an index that's comprised of so many different components, I really recommend folks take a couple of different things into account. And, again, as a source of ideas about potential trades, you can look at advance volume versus declining volume, and you can look at, the percentage of the index above their 52-week moving average and below the 52-week moving average, and just work through 3, 4, 5 different charts that are all readily, quickly available on a platform such as stockcharts.com to, again, generate some ideas, generate a depth of understanding about what's going on in the index, and really start to feel like you're getting an angle on exactly kind of how that's going. If you're a more fundamental macro trader, and again, I've said this a couple times, but I want to keep repeating it. These are the things I read. This is what I go through. You've got your own sources, which I'm sure are great. I find a lot of value in the things like the Moody's weekly market outlook. Just my opinion, no endorsement. It's remarkable to me the quality of information that's available out there on the internet to us as individual traders that folks don't always take advantage of. You know, it's easy as an individual trader. One of the reasons that I'm so passionate about individual traders is, you know, the institutional guys seemingly have so many advantages, right? You know, but we have access in many cases to really good information, and sometimes from those institutions. So, you know, again, I read things like the Moody's Weekly Market Outlook. You can find your own sources of institutional level kind of outlook. The Moody's piece is a nice walk through, you know, each region of the world. It takes a look at the calendar. It takes a look at the big events. It takes a look at the data. It gives you a nice preview. Here's what the data was last time. Here's what it is next time. And it's, you know, every Sunday night I read the Moody's Weekly Market Outlook. It's, you know, 20 pages, you know, but if you take trading seriously, whether or not you ever read this particular deal, it's free, it's online, they put it out on their website. I do think you need to have, we talked earlier about, I showed you like where I go on FinViz, you know, I've taken some news, I've taken some blogs, you know, I think there's a third kind of tier of information I'm taking in, and whether or not I even agree, and I will be perfectly blunt with this group, I disagree with the guys at Moody's probably half the time. I'm not going to tell you who's right half the time, but or wrong, but so it's not to say, you know, here's a source of information that you're going to trade from. You're generating ideas. You're looking for opportunities in the market, and again, you've got a lot of news articles out there. You've got some blogs where some guys are kind of just doing some one-offs real quick, you know, and I think whether, you know, you follow an investment bank or two or a central banks put off great data and analysis, or, you know, again, it's somebody like a credit rating agency. You're having a kind of an institutional level insight into macro markets that you're having the opportunity to trade, whether it's gold, oil, Bitcoin, indexes, you know, all those great markets we have the opportunity to trade on Nadex. You know, pull in some serious professional insight that you can source free out online, and just roll that into your weekly plan. You know, I get 10 trading ideas. Whether or not I agree with the analysis, that's not the point. I'm looking for trading ideas I would not have ordinarily encountered if I hadn't, you know, done a little extra reading on a Sunday afternoon. All right. And then finally, we talked correlations earlier. Again, a great way to generate ideas, not even getting to the point where this is a trading strategy. I'm just saying, you think gold's going up? What else could that impact? We had a great webinar a few weeks ago on trading correlations. If you weren't a part of that, go out to the YouTube channel, the Nadex YouTube channel, favorite it, find the video. It was a good webinar. So again, you start to get, you know, an opinion on the Swiss franc this week. Check a correlation table. What else does that correlate with? And then you start looking at those pairs and those markets, and it's, again, it starts to give you, it opens up a door of additional trading opportunities for you. All right, so building a weekly plan, and again, we'll do this on the premium webinar. I'll actually take you through and build a plan, build my plan for you, and we'll talk about it. It's a very interactive session. It's on November 28th, 11 a.m. Central. All you need to do is be a funded member of the Nadex exchange to attend. Next week, we'll have another kind of fundamental build to that where we'll take a look at some of these different strategies we're talking about, and really how to build those into your plan. So just to recap, this is a quick recap visual here. As I go into my weekly plan, first thing I do is review the calendar. You know, what's going on in global markets, and I follow most markets closely that Nadex offers. Nadex offers so many, I can't follow all of them exactly as closely as I wanted to, but, you know, metals and indexes and currencies, certainly forex. So I'll review on my favorite platform. Again, I use the IG calendar. Here's what's going on in markets this week. And then from that, I'll do some different, you know, reading and researching if you know, there's a lot going on with the yen this week. And the calendar won't dictate, you know, everything I read, but it'll help inform. You know, it's an input to that next step. Then after I've done some research and I've reviewed the calendar, then I'll start to look at technicals. I'll start to look at setups and start to build strategy. And then that last piece, once I have a robust set of ideas, we all have different objectives. We all have different goals as a trader. I'm just kind of walking you through what I do. I may have 20 to 30 different ideas for different trades heading into the week. I may trade 5 of those. I may trade 1 of them. I may trade 20 of them. There's a lot that we'll go into that we're going to talk about on the 28th, actually executing those ideas. But in terms of generating ideas and building a plan, just because I've generated the trading idea and built the plan doesn't necessarily mean, right, like I've got to make that trade. What's important is I'm following my process. I'm giving myself options and opportunities as a trader, and I'm doing it in a repeatable way that'll allow me to learn from, how I'm putting everything together. So what I've got here on the screen is a quick screenshot of the actual spreadsheet. This is just simple. Use your favorite spreadsheet software, Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel, whatever. And as you go left to right, as you look at the visual, you'll be able to sequentially fill out the information. So when I have an idea, or on a Sunday night, early Monday morning, when I'm really putting my week together, and again, you may have a daily cycle, right? So when I keep referring to a week, that's just my process. Yours may be different. You may trade 5-minute binaries, and you want a daily process. That's really cool. This same process that we're walking through right now will apply. So when I'm making my plan, those columns, A through E, I'll fill out up front. This isn't saying I'm executing the trade, but this is kind of what I've seen heading into it, right? Here's the date, here's the pair, here's where the entry would be, here's where I plan my stop, here's my planned target, kind of those broad parameters, right, for what would constitute a trade. And because you're filling this out in advance, so you may, for instance, be, again, an oil trader, and you may be, okay, I'm going to, I'm interested in trading this week the Wednesday morning oil inventory, or maybe you're a natural gas trader, it's the Thursday morning. So you're going to be filling this out in advance because you want it parked in your plan, but things may change heading into that. So as you get closer, you take a look at kind of what you architected out. Some of the A through E columns certainly have changed since then. That's okay. And then you want to look at your risk and reward, your position size, and your true exit there. Again, you can change these columns. I'm just taking you through what I use. But again, you want to have down, for me it's important, I want to put it on paper, so to speak, so I can see it. And we talked earlier, a lot of mistakes traders make. Maybe they're just on a cold streak, or maybe they're newer. You just worry about direction the whole time. And before I enter into a trade, I want into my trading plan, here's a risk I'm looking for, here's a reward I'm looking for, here's the position size, my possible exit price. If it's FX, I trade a lot of FX. We got the pips that are kind of targeted there. And then, you go through and you execute the trades, and you'll fill out the rest, the J through O, Here's what happened. Here's how many pips. If it's FX, here's what happened to my P&L. Here's the planned risk reward. Column L and column M are really important. Here's what I planned on from a risk reward perspective. Here's what happened. Here's where I exited. And then that last column O is really important, and I want to talk about that for a minute. That's where you put some notes in your setup. Here's what I saw. And again, this sheet's your own, the column title is your own. You definitely want to park in a trading plan. This is where it becomes as much a journal as anything. Here's the setup I saw. We were hitting a Fibonacci retracement level. Here was the timing, etc. And you want to journal in there. You'll be surprised at how powerful this is. I promise you. I would guess most folks that are with us today, and thank you for being here, don't do this today. you write down what you were thinking at the time you were thinking it when you entered into a trade. Again, one of the fantastic things about Nadex is you can be trading 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, a week. Lots of trades. You'll be surprised at how much you forget about what you were thinking. This way, now you've got a plan that you can revert back to. It's in a spreadsheet. You could sort by all your dollar-yen trades and look back over the last month. What was the setup I was looking at? What happened? Now you've got, okay, when I see this setup, my risk reward is X. The number of pips I've gotten from this setup over the last month in dollar-yen is huge. You know, the number of pips from this other setup is maybe negative. Well, let's not trade that other setup. Maybe I need to go practice in the demo account or whatever. So you want to make sure you're writing down all of these key parts of each trade, but make sure that column O is somewhere in your trading plan where you are taking a minute at some point. And maybe you're trading 5-minute binaries fast and furious. You do it a little bit later before you forget. That's fine. That's cool. Whatever works. But one of the most important things I tell folks when they ask me, what's the number one thing I could do to get better at trading? Write down before you enter into a trade what you saw and what you were thinking. And at the end of the week, look back at all of it. You know, the best forms of education, the way to get better is you're going to teach yourself, you're going to push yourself, you're going to learn from your own action. And having that written down as part of your trading plan is really, really a key, fundamental, foundational part of that. All right. Take a look here at some of the questions, feedback. Hey, getting some good feedback. Just what the doctor ordered. Thanks. It's nice. You know, a lot of, again, what we're sharing here today is again, things we already know. It's just good to have a refresher, or maybe there are some, new concepts. Again, my goal here is just really take you through my process. So what we're going to do next week, now we've kind of walked through just some of the basics, right? We're just building blocks right now. Here's some building blocks in terms of what we look for in building a weekly trading plan. Next week, we're going to talk more about the different strategies we can use. I touched on them today: momentum, volatility, direction, straddling. We're going to go more in depth in that next week. Plan to be a part of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then the third webinar, November 28th, 11 o'clock Central. It's called How to Build a Trading Strategy, Start to Finish. I will take you through the whole deal, as interactive and as engaging as you'd like. I'll do it live. It'll be real. You'll ask questions. All you got to do to be a part of that is be a funded member of the exchange. Join us for the November 28th webinar, premium webinar. Join us for the next one when we talk about the strategies. So you've got that building block. We'll put it all together on November 28th. Look forward to you being there. More than anything, thank you for the time today. This has been a ton of fun for me. Hope some of these building blocks were helpful to you. I'll talk to you next week, and then really looking forward to the November 28th webinar. Until then, thanks to Nadex for putting this on, and thanks to each of you for being a part of it and making it so much fun for me. Take care and good luck.